Right, so we're now going to look at the unordered list under this recent works paragraph. Now, the unordered list is going to start off as a generic style, so we're going to call this inline list. We're going to create a class that basically represents any inline list that we want to create. And this means that if we have an inline list anywhere on the website, excluding the header because that's slightly different, we've got a button in there and there's slight differences. We can go ahead and apply this inline list class, and that's going to make code reusability really good, because anytime you want an inline list, even if it's, for example, a simple list at the bottom of the page, just showing privacy policy, cookie policy, whatever, you've got that list there then. So let's go ahead and create the markup. We'll create this generic list style. Then we'll start to target this recent section and start to target to make the unordered list look like this. So inside of our markup, let's go ahead and just within here, go ahead and create an unordered list. And obviously within this, we're going to have list items. And within these list items, we're going to have anchors. So the href will just be hash for now. Let's go ahead and fill this in based on the designs. We've got all web, mobile, design, photography, and type. So all web, mobile, design, all web, mobile, design. So all web, mobile, design. And we had, I think, photography and type. Perfect. So photography and type. Okay, so again, as we saw earlier with the header, when we refresh, this looks pretty shocking. The reason it looks more shocking than usual as well is the fact that we've center aligned all the text within this recent work section, which is fine, but it means that these list bullet points here just sort of float off here while the text stays in the middle. So let's go ahead and start to create this inline list hook, if you like. So down here, let's go ahead and create a new comment section, and we'll call this lists. So within this, let's go ahead and create a class called inline list, and this is going to basically just be what we apply to the actual unordered list itself. So I can go ahead and add a class here of inline list. Now once I've done that, remember, cast your mind back to when we did the header. If we just have a look, the navigation here, we set the list style type to none. So let's go ahead and do that now. List style type to none. There we go. So now that's going to, get rid of our horrible, well, not horrible, they serve a brilliant purpose, but in this case, our horrible bullets that we have on the left hand side. Still not perfect though, so let's go ahead and, as you may have already guessed, style inline list li. Remember, we're not targeting ul here because the inline list is the ul. So we're going to do a display of inline block. Remember, LIs will now be displayed as block level elements, but will be displayed inline, like an inline element. They'll behave like inline elements. So we're already starting to see something here that we would expect to see. So this looks a lot nicer. So what we're now going to do is just add a couple more styles. So we're going to say margin 020 pixels. Now what this will do is it will set the margin on the top and bottom to 0 and the left and right to 20 pixels. So we have 40 pixel spacing between these items. And we're going to go ahead and set a default margin bottom to 20px. Now this could be overridden by whatever element on your, or whatever section on your site needs to use it, but generally if we have a margin at the bottom, that just spaces things out nicely. If this were to be at the top of a page and you'd have text underneath it, it would space things out nicely in that respect. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and look at actually styling this within this recent section. So what we've now done is created the list, and we've created this sort of default list, if you like, and now we're going to customize it in terms of inside of this recent section. So what we want to do is we want to say recent UL LIA. So we're going to style the anchors. And bear in mind, this assumes that we are only having one unordered list within our recent section. So if you are planning on extending anything like this, or your design's slightly different, and you have any other unordered lists within your recent section that you don't want to be styled like this, then you have to go and add a separate class to your unordered lists to be able to style them. But in this case, I'm just saying the unordered list within recent, or any unordered list within recent, which just happens to be one. Let's go ahead and set the color to white. So this is the anchor, remember, that we're targeting. We're going to go ahead and set a border, and this is a little bit weird, of 2 pixels, solid and transparent. Now, the reason we're doing this is if we cast our mind, well, open Photoshop basically, when you hover over an item, the border appears. Now, if we look at, and we'll check this out in just a moment, if we look at hovering over an item where there is not a border, and then we add a border, the box model, meaning the sort of the understanding behind the spacing between elements, means that if we add a 2 pixel border, that will push everything out 2 pixels. So we'll look at that in just a moment, and we'll come back to that. But again, let's go ahead and just add some more spacing here. So I'm going to say padding 8 pixel 20 for the anchors. And the reason that we're doing that is, let's just inspect one of them. Scroll up a bit. Let's inspect one of these. So the reason that we're doing that is because now you can see that the items are a little bit bigger. And that means that when we add stuff like the selected class, or we have the border on the outside, it means that they have the same spacing as this. They have this green section around here. So we've got the padding in there now, so we've got these big chunky buttons, but we need to sort of see how this looks with the selected class. And the selected class is going to be what's applied to a list item like this. And what this is going to do is it's going to style the anchor slightly differently, showing that it's selected. So this time we want to say recent UL LI button LI with the class of selected and the anchor within that. So what we now want to do is say we want the background to be white, and we want the color to be of the text to be the same color as the background. So you can see in Photoshop it's the same green. So if we pick that color again, it's this color here. So we can go ahead and just bung that in there. So now what's going to happen is we get this. Perfect. So that's why we added the padding on it earlier. So if we were to get rid of the padding, then we just see like a little white background on. That's why we added the padding. So let's now look at the border radius, because in the design we have this nice radius, much like we did with the button at the top of the page in the navigation. Up here we added a radius onto this. What we now want to do is add that to these buttons as well. So we want to add a border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, so we also want to change the weight of these items. That's pretty straightforward. Font weight of 600 just to make them a little bit more bold. And that's it for now. We now need to add this selected state. So bear in mind that all of these items now have borders. We can tell that by that yellow outline that you can see around each one. Can you see that yellow outline there? That's the border. At the moment it's transparent, so it will show whatever's behind it. However, what we want to do is we want to say, when we hover over an anchor, we want to go ahead and change that border. So we can say border 2 pixels solid FFF. What we could have done is say border color or something like that, but we'll go ahead and redefine it here just so it in comparison makes more sense. So now when I refresh and I hover, you can see that that border now is white. Perfect. So if we didn't have this, as we mentioned earlier, you'll see why we added that in there initially. So everything looks fine until we start to hover over items. And can you see that the items on the left and the right of this are actually moving out as we hover over this? So it's very, very annoying. So what we need to do is we need to sort of almost block in that space before we start to do anything else with this. So that's basically the unordered list that we we've created. We created a generic sort of handler for unordered lists. So a sort of hook, if you like, that just says I want this unordered list to display inline. And then based on this recent work section, we have styled this up according to the Photoshop design. So we've now completed the recent work section and we've completed the unordered list within it.